Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Raymond. I'm 45. I own 3 vehicle detailing warehouses outside Houston. Nothing fancy from the outside, but inside it's precision work, contracts, fleet accounts, steady money. I built it over 20 years, starting with one borrowed bay and a truck that broke down more than it ran. I don't talk much about the past, but I have a son, Jacob, 20 years old. He lives with his mother during school breaks, studies engineering, keeps his head straight. I did my part there, even if the marriage didn't survive. We ended it clean. No fighting, no courtroom games, just 2 people admitting the truth too late. I met Michelle at a charity auction downtown. She wasn't loud, wasn't trying to be seen. She just had this way of watching a room like she understood it better than most people in it. We talked near the bar table for maybe 10 minutes before someone interrupted us, and I remember thinking I'd like to finish that conversation. We did. It turned into dinners, then weekends, then something that started to feel structured, not chaotic, not unsure. Michelle had discipline in her life. She worked in corporate finance. Everything she did had order behind it. That matched me more than I expected. 18 months in, I proposed. Simple moment, private dinner, no audience. She said yes without hesitation. Her parents, Harold and Diane, were there the next weekend for a celebration dinner. That's when I first felt it. Harold's handshake was too firm, too controlled, like a man measuring me instead of greeting me. Diane smiled the way people smile when they're approving something temporary. I noticed. I didn't comment. We set the wedding for late spring at a ranch venue outside the city. Open land, clean setup, nothing exaggerated. Michelle handled most of the planning. She was precise about it. Seating charts, flower colors, vendor calls. She even pushed the date once, said work pressure was building. I didn't argue. I adjusted the schedule and kept moving. Looking back, that was the first small concession I made without questioning it. There were other details, too. Her parents were involved more than usual. Harold would suggest vendors. Diane would call Michelle late at night about arrangements I wasn't included in. I told myself it was just family enthusiasm. I stayed focused on work. That's what I do when something feels slightly off. I keep things moving and wait for facts. At the time, I didn't know I was already waiting for something to break. 10 days before the wedding, Diane announced a Bachelorette trip. Michelle told me about it while I was going through invoices at the kitchen table. She leaned against the counter, coffee in hand, like it was a small detail. "Mom planned something for me," she said. "Just a few days. Girls' trip before the wedding." "Where?" I asked without looking up. "Key West. 2 nights. Nothing crazy." I stopped writing for a second. Key West made sense on paper. But Diane wasn't the type to plan nothing crazy. Everything she did had structure behind it. Still, I nodded. "All right." Michelle smiled like she was relieved I didn't push harder. That should have told me something. 2 days later, Diane called while Michelle was standing in the kitchen. I could hear both sides of the conversation. "It's all set, sweetheart," Diane said. "Flights are booked. Your cousins will meet you there. One last proper celebration before everything changes." Michelle looked at me when she heard that last part. Everything changes wasn't how normal people talk about a wedding. I kept my face neutral. Michelle left on a Friday morning. I drove her to the airport. She kissed me before security. "I'll be back Sunday night," she said. "Don't work too hard." "You too," I said. She laughed. "I'm literally going on a vacation." I watched her disappear through airport security. Something in my chest stayed tight even after she was gone. That night, I sat in my office above the main warehouse. My phone lit up around 9:40. Michelle posted a story. It wasn't Key West. It was Charleston, a rooftop bar, night skyline, glass in her hand. And beside her, a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, clean suit, too comfortable in the frame like he belonged there. I didn't react immediately. I just stared at it long enough to make sure I wasn't misreading it. It was the way Michelle stood beside him that bothered me. There was no awkwardness in it, no hesitation. She looked like she already knew exactly how close she wanted to be. I'd known her long enough to tell the difference. Then I forwarded it to someone I hadn't called in years. His name was Victor Shaw, private investigations, ex-security, the kind of man who doesn't ask why, only what needs to be confirmed. I called him after. "I need eyes on something," I said. "What's the target?" he asked. "My fiancée," I said. "And a trip that isn't what it's supposed to be." There was a short pause. "Send what you have," Victor said. "I'll start tonight." I ended the call and sat back in my chair. No anger yet, not even confusion. Just a quiet understanding that something had shifted, and I was no longer guessing. I was watching, and watching meant I was already ahead of them. Victor called me the next evening. I was inside my main warehouse watching a crew replace a hydraulic lift seal. My phone rang. I stepped outside. "I've got her," Victor said. "Where?" "Charleston, not Key West. She checked into a boutique hotel on the waterfront 2 nights ago." I didn't say anything. He continued, "She's not alone." That part I already knew. Victor sent me a folder within 10 minutes. I opened it in my truck. First image, Michelle sitting at an outdoor restaurant by the harbor, laughing, leaning forward like she was mid-conversation that mattered. Second image, the man from the rooftop story. Victor confirmed his name as David Pierce, 36. His family ran a private investment group tied to real estate development across the Southeast. Third image, Michelle walking beside him down a cobblestone street. Not touching, not distant either, just close enough to raise questions. Then Victor called again. "There's more." "Say it." "Her parents are there." I didn't move at first. "Explain." "Harold and Diane checked into the same hotel the morning she arrived. Same property, same time frame. They're on the same floor." That changed the shape of everything. "You're saying they're involved," I said. "I'm saying they're present," Victor replied. "And they're not separate from what's happening." He kept going. "David isn't random. His family is tied to a private lending structure. Harold has a loan connected to that network, roughly 300,000. That number stayed in the air. "So this is arranged," I said. "I'm saying it's coordinated," Victor replied. I looked through the windshield at the warehouse. Men working, machines moving, everything honest, everything predictable. "And Michelle?" I asked. A pause. "I don't think she sees all of it," Victor said. "But she's inside it." Then he added, "There's one more thing." I didn't answer. My guy stayed overnight. Last photo is time-stamped 7/12 the next morning. I already knew what was coming. Michelle was leaving David Pierce's suite. Same dress she wore to dinner, heels in her hand, hair tied back. She looked like she hadn't gone home at all. I didn't speak for a few seconds. "Send everything," I said. Then I ended the call. I didn't move for a while. Then I checked Michelle's social media again. The story was gone, deleted, but I had already seen it, and Victor had already confirmed it. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need to stay visible once you've already caught it. That night, Michelle texted me, "Everything is beautiful here. Miss you. Can't wait to come home." I replied, "Good. Travel safe. No accusations, no questions." Because now I understood something simple. If you speak too early, you lose leverage. And I wasn't in the business of losing. Michelle came back on Sunday evening. I picked her up myself. I wanted to see her the moment she stepped out of that airport door. Not through stories or messages, but in real time. She looked tired in the way travel makes people tired. Hair slightly undone, eyes softer than usual. She smiled when she saw me and came straight into my arms. "I missed you," she said. "Missed you too," I replied. She held me a second longer than normal. Then she stepped back and reached for her bag. In the truck, she talked the whole drive home. "The hotel was amazing," she said. "We went out by the water every night. Diane really went all out." "Yeah?" I asked. "Yeah, it was nice. Just relaxing." Her voice was steady. Too steady. I watched the road. At no point did she mention Charleston. At no point did she mention David Pierce. Not once. That was the first real confirmation. When we got home, she went upstairs to shower. I stayed in the kitchen. Victor texted me while she was still in the bathroom. "There's also a bracelet." I read that twice. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a drawer and placed a folder inside it. Everything Victor had sent so far. Photos, hotel records, names, connections. Not for confrontation yet. For timing. Michelle came back downstairs later wearing comfortable clothes, acting normal again like nothing had shifted. She leaned against the counter. "I'm starving. Can we order something?" "Yeah," I said. "Sit down." We ate at the table like usual. She talked about seating plans for the wedding. I listened, asked small questions, kept the conversation light. She relaxed more as the night went on. That told me everything I needed. People only relax when they believe the surface is still intact. After dinner, she reached for my hand across the table. "We're good, right?" she asked. I looked at her for a moment. "Yeah," I said. "We're good. But I wasn't answering the question she thought she was asking. That night, I stayed awake longer than her. At some point, she stopped pretending and fell asleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathing even out, and I thought about something Victor once told me. Most people don't lie because they're evil. They lie because they think they can manage the truth later. The problem is, truth doesn't wait, and neither do I. 3 days before the wedding, Michelle came downstairs early. She was dressed casually, hair tied back, coffee already in her hand. She looked at me like she'd been thinking overnight about something important. "I've been thinking," she said. I didn't respond right away. I just watched her. She set her mug down on the counter like she was preparing a conversation she had already practiced. "I think we should slow things down," she said. "Maybe take a break. Not cancel anything. Just pause." There it was. Not panic, not emotion. A controlled sentence, carefully built. I nodded once. "A break," I repeated. She relaxed slightly. "Just until things settle. I don't want us rushing into something if either of us has doubts." I stood up from the chair slowly. "Okay," I said. That surprised her. She expected resistance, questions, emotion, something she could manage. Instead, I smiled. Not warm, not soft, just controlled. Then I walked to the counter and picked up the folder I had placed there the night before. "I think you should see something before we continue this conversation." Her eyes dropped to the folder immediately. "What is that?" she asked. "Sit down," I said. She hesitated, then sat at the table. I opened the folder and turned it toward her. The first page was a photo from Charleston. Her, David. Close enough that the lie didn't need explanation. Her expression shifted slightly. "That's not—" I turned the page. Hotel records. Same location, same dates. Her parents listed on the same property. Her breathing changed. I kept turning pages. David Pierce, financial profile, connection to a private investment structure tied to Harold's debt. Then the bracelet receipt, rose gold, engraved with her initials. She stopped me there. "I didn't ask for that," she said quickly. He gave it to me at dinner. I didn't know how to refuse it." I didn't argue. I just looked at her. "You kept it," I said. Silence. That was when her hands left the table. She leaned back like the chair wasn't stable anymore. "I didn't know what this was," she said. "I didn't know about the arrangement, about the loan, about any of it." I closed the folder. "I believe you about not planning this," I said. "But you still went. You still lied when you came back. And you let it happen." Before she could answer, the front door opened. Footsteps. Harold and Diane walked in like they still owned the timing of the room. Diane smiled automatically. "Good morning, you two." She stopped when she saw the table. Harold saw it too. The folder. The photos. The air changed instantly. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Then Diane said carefully, "What is going on here?" I looked at her. "Sit down," I said. "Both of you. You're already part of it." Michelle turned toward them slowly, like she was seeing something she had avoided noticing for a long time. And for the first time, she didn't look like she was in control of anything. Not the room, not the story, not even her own decisions. Harold didn't sit down. He stayed standing near the doorway, like sitting would make the situation official. Diane moved first. She pulled out a chair and sat at the edge of it, still holding on to her composure like it was part of her identity. Michelle looked between them. "Mom? Dad? What is this?" she asked. I didn't answer for them. I didn't need to. Harold finally spoke. "This is being taken out of context. This whole situation." I opened the folder again and placed one page on the table. Not a stack, just one. The loan record. $300,000. Private lending structure. Connected to David Pierce's family investment group. I tapped the page once. "This is context," I said. "Everything else is noise." Diane leaned forward immediately. "Raymond, this is a financial arrangement. It has nothing to do with Michelle's relationship." I looked at her. "You flew your daughter across state lines 10 days before her wedding," I said. "You placed her in the same hotel as a man tied to your debt. You call that unrelated?" Harold's jaw tightened. "David is a good match. That's all this was meant to be." Michelle flinched at that. "A match?" she repeated quietly. Diane stepped in fast. "Sweetheart, we just wanted you to have options. That's all. You've been so focused on this wedding, we thought you should meet someone stable. Someone established." I cut her off. "No," I said. You don't arrange meetings like that without intent. Silence hit the room again. Michelle turned to Harold. Tell me the truth. Harold hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Finally, he exhaled. The loan was due for restructuring. David's family offered terms. There were conditions to the arrangement. Michelle's voice dropped. Conditions? Diane answered quickly. Nothing forced, just introductions, connections. You're reading it wrong. I leaned back slightly in my chair. No, I said. I'm reading it exactly as it is. Michelle stood up slowly now, like she needed distance from the table to think. So, what was I? She asked. Part of the condition? No one answered fast enough. That was the answer. Her voice cracked slightly at the edges, but she held it together. You didn't tell me any of this. Harold finally looked at her. We were protecting you. From what? She asked. From making emotional decisions before understanding the full picture, Diane said. I let out a short breath. That's the problem, I said. She didn't understand the full picture, and you still sent her into it anyway. Harold's face tightened. You think you're innocent in this? You've been watching her for days, building files, collecting evidence. I didn't hide anything from her, I said. That stopped him. Michelle turned back toward me slowly. You knew all of this before I came home? She asked. Yes. And you didn't say anything? No, I said. She studied me carefully now, like she was trying to place me in a version of events she hadn't seen clearly before. Why? She asked. I closed the folder. Because I wanted to see what you would do when you were finally standing in the truth without anyone holding the script for you. That landed differently. Not harsh, not soft, just final. Diane stood up. This is becoming unreasonable. Harold followed. We don't need this conversation continuing. I looked at both of them. You already made your decision, I said. You just didn't think anyone would be in a position to prove it. The wedding is off. Michelle didn't move when they left. She stayed standing in the middle of the room long after the door closed. And for the first time since I met her, she wasn't shaped by her parents' version of the world. She was standing outside of it. The wedding was supposed to be Saturday. Instead, I turned the venue into something else. Same ranch, same lights, same chairs. But I had the layout changed completely. No ceremony setup, no aisle. Just open space, rows of seats, and a screen at the front. I called it a meeting. Nothing more. By 6:30, people started arriving. My son Jacob came first. He shook my hand like a man, not a kid anymore, and said, I'm here. That was all. Victor showed up next and sat in the back without speaking. Then Michelle arrived with Diane and Harold. No wedding dress, no smiles, just silence that felt heavier than anything else in the room. Michelle looked at the setup and immediately understood this wasn't an argument anymore. It was an outcome. David Pierce came in last. I didn't invite him to humiliate him. I invited him because truth doesn't work in pieces. When the room settled, I stepped forward. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm here so everyone hears the same version of what actually happened. I clicked the remote. First slide, Charleston Hotel records. Murmurs moved through the room. Second, photos of Michelle and David at dinner, close enough that distance stopped meaning anything. No reaction from me. No pause. Third, the loan documents. Harold's name. $300,000. Clear structure. Clear tie. Harold shifted in his seat. Fourth, a photo of Michelle leaving David Pierce's hotel suite early in the morning. Same clothes from the night before. Hair slightly undone. Heels in her hand. That was the proof. Not the dinner. Not the trip. That moment. A few people shifted in their seats. No one spoke. I looked at Michelle. She didn't ask what it was. She already knew. When the room stayed silent, I spoke again. He didn't just meet you in Charleston, I said. You stayed in his room that night. And when you came back, you told me you had been in Key West. Michelle lowered her eyes. No denial. No defense. Harold's jaw tightened. Diane looked away. I clicked the remote again. The screen went dark. That's the situation, I said. Not speculation, not emotion, documentation. Harold stood up. This is a private matter being turned into... Sit down, I said. Not loud, just final. He sat. Diane tried next. We were trying to secure stability for her future. I looked at her. You used your daughter as leverage to manage your debt, I said. That's not stability. That's pressure. Silence. Michelle finally spoke. Her voice was low. I didn't know the full truth, but I knew what I was doing wasn't clean. She looked at David, and I still stayed. That was the part she couldn't escape. No one interrupted her. She turned to me. You could have stopped it sooner. I nodded once. Yes. Why didn't you? I looked at her for a moment. Because I don't step into something halfway through and guess what it means. I wait until everything is on the table. That was it. No apology, no defense, just structure. David stood up quietly after that. He didn't argue, didn't perform. He just left the room the way people do when they realize they were never the center of anything important. Harold followed a minute later. Diane stayed for a second longer, then left without looking back. And then it was just us. Michelle stayed seated. Jacob stood near the back, watching but not interfering. Victor leaned against the wall. No one spoke for a while. Michelle finally broke the silence. What happens now? She asked. I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was simple. Everything that needed to be said had already been said in the only language that mattered. Proof. I closed my laptop and looked at her. Now, I said, you stop living inside other people's decisions, and I stop living inside a story that was already rewritten without my input. She nodded slowly. No argument, no pleading, just understanding. Later that night, people left quietly. No celebration, no closure speeches, just movement toward exits. Jacob drove back first. Victor nodded and left without words. Michelle stood by the empty chairs for a long time before she finally walked out. She didn't look back. Not once. And I didn't stop her. Because after what was shown, there was nothing left to chase. Only what had already been decided. I stayed behind until the lights were shut off. The venue was quiet again. Same place where something was supposed to begin. Instead, it ended clean. On the drive home, I thought about everything that happened. No revenge, no chaos, just alignment. Over the next 2 weeks, Michelle called 3 times and sent more messages than I bothered counting. The first few were short. Then they got honest. Charleston, she admitted, had been a mistake. Sleeping with David should never have happened. And her parents had been in her ear for months, pushing, steering, framing things in a way that made her stop trusting her own judgment. The last message was the only one that mattered. She said she knew she had destroyed what we had. She said she knew she let her parents into something that was supposed to belong to the two of us. Then she asked me to let her try to fix it. I read it once and put my phone down. I didn't answer that night. I answered the next morning. You didn't make one mistake, I wrote back. You made a series of choices and called them confusion after they were exposed. That's not something I build a life on. I won't hate you for it, but I won't marry you after it either. That was the last message I sent her. People always think moments like this break a man. They don't. They strip everything unnecessary away until only the structure remains. And sometimes what's left is stronger than what you planned to build in the first place. Because in the end, I didn't lose a wedding. I didn't lose a woman who cheated in a hotel room in Charleston and came back pretending nothing happened. I removed everything that wasn't real before it had the chance to become my life. And that made all the difference. Thank you for watching.